Hello and welcome to my new video. Sorry it's been a long time since I've posted, it's been busy. Also welcome to my new studio, which you can see behind me, resplendent in its almost tidiness. I wanted to talk today a little bit about playing bebop heads or using gypsy picking, and how we can sort of confront some of the technical difficulties and perhaps make things slightly easier for ourselves. Strict gypsy picking is something which is very well suited, obviously, for playing gypsy picking licks. For instance, descending arpeggios are quite difficult, so a lot of gypsy players modify their descending arpeggios to contain extra notes. For instance, if we play a descending D7 arpeggio, starting on this note, if I play it using strict gypsy picking, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, we run into some problems because it's very hard to do that, basically, to go down on that string and then down that string immediately afterwards. At moderate tempos it's alright, but at fast tempos you get stuck, right? So a lot of gypsy style players, what they do is they add in an extra note, usually the ninth in this particular arpeggio, and it's much easier, right? There's practically no sort of limit on how fast you can go with that if you practice it enough. Okay, and the same with like a lot of our sort of kind of arpeggio shapes like that, for instance, you know, and you know they're all like two notes of string shapes which are easy to play when descending. So basically, the rules of gypsy picking is that for going up, you know, downwards on the guitar physically, any combination of notes is fine, but coming up we encounter some limitations. And the big mechanical limitation, if we play an odd number of notes per string, is that we might, if we're going down on each new string, we end up there. So we end up buried where we can't get at the new string, can't jump back over. And that's a bit of a problem. So for instance, if I'm playing three notes of string, that's hard, right? Which is why I said that's the most important warm-up for the right hand, because that's the hardest thing that it has to do in gypsy style picking, right? So, I mean, the problem with that is that we can help ourselves a bit by lifting the pick out of the plane, like that, when we come up for upstrokes, but it's hard. Now, the interesting thing is that a lot of like really great bebop style or modern jazz players actually use something which you could see as a variation of gypsy rest stroke picking. A famous example is Joe Pass, but also to an extent Tal Farlow. Even Wes Montgomery, if you look at his thumb picking, is kind of modelled on rest stroke picking. He plays rest strokes into the strings and he upstrokes occasionally with his thumb going out of the plane of the strings. That's the way he plays. Another example where he uses a different pick grip is George Benson, who kind of obeys similar rules, really, to gypsy picking. It's just that they're a little bit relaxed. He tends to go economy picking downwards and then alternate picking going up, basically. But it's a similar sort of idea to gypsy picking. And the movements that his hand does when he plays that way are similar to the movements that you can see Josko Stefan and all the legit gypsy pickers doing when they play. So that's worth thinking about. It's like, well, in this case, because I mean, I always thought, well, you know, I'll need to develop two techniques, one for gypsy picking and one for everything else. And actually, I'm now starting to believe that actually this kind of picking, gypsy picking or downward rest stroke picking, if you like, is actually pretty flexible if you use it with intelligence. It's also interesting that, as Troy Grady points out, many rock guitar players use a variant of this type of approach. However, this becomes difficult when we move out of the area of stuff which is guitaristic. Now, obviously, bebop heads were written on saxophone mostly, and that was obviously always a challenge for the guitarist to play something that wasn't conceived for guitar. And this is where we start to move out of that familiar kind of guitaristic realm of gypsy jazz and into something a little bit more alien, which is where our technique really has to start doing some work. So I'm going to give you some examples of little problems I've come across in bebop heads. The biggest problem is basically, like I say, our pick getting buried a downstroke at the end of a number of notes on a string. So a good example of that comes from the beginning of the tune Donnelly, which a lot of people learn. And we go down, up, down. Now we've got string change, my pick is going down. Same thing again. Okay, and we got an upstroke at the end, so that's something. So one very simple way we can change that is simply introducing some hammer-ons and pull-offs. And the first one is obvious. In fact, you can play both of those as a trill, but I mean one nice thing is to play like the first two notes and then pull off the third. And then we pull off that one. The reason why I pull off that one and not the other one, so we're putting our second finger to first, third finger to second finger here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. It's because it swings a lot more if instead of slurring from the beat onto the offbeat, you slur from the offbeat onto the beat. So if you listen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, and 1. Okay? So that kind of creates more of a swing feel, and that gives us time to get our pickup for the next string. Now I find with this figure, have a look at my hand. Notice that I'm doing something illegal. I'm doing an upstroke on the D string. That's starting on a D string, and then ending that with a downstroke at the end of the phrase. So it's a slight variation of our normal gypsy picking rules, which demand that I would play a down, down, up, down, down, up like that. Now I'm saying, while it's a good idea to practice that, in the heat of the moment, might well happen, okay? And you can often see, like, for example, in that video of Josko Stefan that Troy Grady posted, you can see him actually cheating upstrokes when he accelerates his arpeggios beyond a certain speed. So this sort of thing becomes, you know, more of a sweepy kind of vibe. Okay, that works again because if you put a pull off there and keep the pick in the upstroke direction, you can go a lot faster, right? So in general, for upstrokes, starting new strings and upstrokes, I can't believe I'm even saying that on a Gypsy Jazz channel, but bear with me. Then actually, what helps is if you only play one note on the next string over. So for instance, you might remember my cross-picking pattern. Works like that. And again, I find it easier, like for arpeggios. I find that easier than going, because I think when you pick one note, your pick doesn't quite have enough time to sort of bury itself in the string. It kind of bounces a little bit, and then it's easier to bring it up. I don't know, it's just something I find in my own playing. Other people might beg to differ. Another thing you can do, and this is particularly legit because Django himself is on film doing it, is to start phrases with an upbeat. So you could even, just start a phrase with an upbeat if you find that reversing the picking around helps a little bit. And I've often found that as well. Let's go on with Donna Lee. So again, it might be an idea to use a hammer on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, onto the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Yeah, so hammering onto the beat. And so on, right? There's often difficult little phrases like one thing that's been troubling me a bit recently has been Moose the Mooch, where you go. So this kind of thing. But legit gypsy picking is a bit of a nightmare. So what is it? It's a C minor 7 arpeggio starting on B flat. So again, I have to kind of cheat that a little bit. But I kind of throw it away as well. It's not really that important to play it super accurately. use a few hammer-ons and pull-offs there, which I think help with the swing, but also make the picking easier. Sorry. So. Yeah, so again, this thing. Yeah, using an upstroke there is the way I've basically dealt with that. So I'll just show you my hand. So. It's funny. I cheat that a lot. I tend to alternate pick that a lot, but you can actually gypsy pick it. I think most of that is fine at that particular tempo. So it's on a case-by-case basis, really, that I do this sort of stuff. But I find, on the whole, it's not too bad. I mean, you know, like Hot House is a good one. And then, how's it go? We'll do. And then, that's quite gypsy picky. Okay? And so on, right? So, I mean, it's surprisingly, you can use it, but you do have to think sometimes about how, you know, how you're going to overcome some of the problems associated with this particular type of picking. A lot of the time being slightly lazy about it helps, but, you know, judicious use of hammer-ons and pull-offs. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Like that, right? So that kind of thing I think is good. There are, like, well, I mean, in a urge is one where you actually have to do this. I mean, the whole sort of thing is not really bebop. This is where it gets a bit difficult for a gypsy picker. That's fine. So what you have to do there is obviously an upsweep. So in that case, I kind of tilt my hand right over. Oh, I can't even do it now. So not particularly clean, but you get the idea. Somebody like Borelli would do this, I think. They would, he would just go like that and just tilt his hand over and then, or perhaps even straighter. Anyway, so that's just to give you a bit of an insight into the sorts of things I would kind of think about when approaching this kind of work. And I think it's very good for my technique. I feel like confident that I can play most things, you know, in a gypsy jazz kind of setting now. You know, I'm not limited to playing, you know, the kind of licks. I feel I can play most of my repertoire in a situation with acoustic guitar, you know, which is a nice feeling. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.